You're listening to The Power Project. I'm your host, Brandy Voth. I also like to think that I'm your guide along this journey of purpose, which is where you will hopefully end up at the end of this podcast. I'm a mom, a wife, a daughter, a friend, an entrepreneur, an advocate in the fight against human trafficking. I wear a lot of hats, y'all, but don't we all? And most importantly, I am passionate about inspiring women to go out and lead purpose-filled lives while owning your God-given power. I have this crazy belief that we are all better when we lift each other up, which is exactly why I created this platform to spotlight other women that are leading in ministry, business, and nonprofits in the hopes that you at home will be inspired by their stories to get up and take action in order to walk in purpose and own your God-given power. Without further ado, let's jump right in. Welcome back to The Power Project. My guest today is Brandy Edwards. She is the founder of the Self-Love Challenge. In honor of February and it being the month of love, I thought there would be no better time than now to bring this ball of love and beauty and goodness to this show. She is also an empowerment speaker, and she's a self-proclaimed self-love expert. So, hey, Brandy, how are you?
I am doing great. I'm looking forward to doing this interview with you and celebrating the month of February and loving ourselves while we work on ourselves this month.
Right. And you want to know what's really funny? So I just had a girl named Brandy on the show, I believe 3 episodes ago. 3 or 4 episodes ago. And so she was my first Brandy to have on the show. And her name was with an I-E. And then my name's with an I and yours is with a Y. So we've had 3 Brandys and 3 different spellings in the last few weeks.
I love it. And so many people will tell you that I introduce myself sometimes as Brandy with a Y because people, might just automatically assume it's an I or something like that. And over the years, I just kind of being funny, I just started to introduce myself as Brandy with a Y. And I'm kind of known for that. So that's kind of funny. I love it.
That is hilarious. It's so funny. Were you named after the song by chance, the Looking Glass song?
I am not, but I do know what song you're talking about.
Yep, that my dad actually named, that was where he came up with my name, was from that song. So I always think it's funny.
Yeah.
But we have more in common than just our names. We both really enjoy personal development. We enjoy being the best version of ourselves. And I think we met at a personal development conference, and you literally radiate just joy and happiness, and the amount of self-love that you have for yourself is super, super apparent to the world that's around you. But I'm curious, have you always been that confident with yourself and that much in love with yourself, or is that something that has taken time?
It is certainly something that has taken time, and it is also a choice. I have to choose to be confident. I have to choose to love myself. I have to choose to accept myself in any given moment. And there were certainly periods in my life where I struggled with self-acceptance and just feeling like I wasn't good enough in a variety of ways. And oftentimes feeling like my self-worth related to my body and my physical appearance and chasing after the next 10 pounds that I needed to lose or the next size down I wanted to be in, and different struggles and insecurities with that started as a child. I recall when I was younger, I would wear a large t-shirt over my swimsuit at a young age in elementary school when I would go to the beach or to the swimming pool. And, starting out that young, you can only imagine how I began to feel about my body as I aged, and various stories of, being on diet pills, excessively working out, limiting what I would eat, being on a diet all of the time, and just kind of going back and forth, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, but just always thinking once I achieve this goal that I'm searching for, then I will feel happier. Then I will feel good enough. Then I will feel lovable. And I reached a point before I ever discovered self love. I kind of had this epiphany. And I remember I was the smallest I'd ever been at that point in my life, and looking in the mirror and feeling happy, but feeling like I could be happier, and kind of pinching fat on my stomach and thinking, well, I could still tone up here. I don't have abs and I still have cellulite, and I could still tone up my legs. And I just reached a point where I was like, wow, I'm never going to be at peace with my body. And I just kind of accepted that. And that was years before my self-love journey even began. And it wasn't until I chose to accept myself, even though I had goals, and even though I wanted to be stronger or healthier or things like that, and not waiting to love myself.
And so, and I'm curious, do you feel like, because I'm always curious about this. I always wonder kind of like where we first doubted ourselves and where we first felt insecure. Do you think that there was anything that you could, whether it was media or magazines or or anything around you in your environment, can you think of one thing maybe that made you feel like as a young girl that you needed to cover up with a t-shirt, or made you feel not comfortable in your own skin?
I recall women in my life that I knew doing that, and I just kind of did it. And that's where I feel like, parents sometimes, or just people that have influence over children, might not realize the impact that they're having, even when they're telling their children or these young kids around them that they're amazing and they're beautiful and all of those things. I think it's easy to think that you're not passing down your insecurities to your children when you're telling them certain things, but when you're saying certain things about yourself, even on an unconscious level. But I remember women in my life doing that. And then I also remember just having women in my life that struggled with their own acceptance of being on different diets, or maybe saying something negative about themselves here and there, picking themselves apart after they took a picture, which back in the day, was after it got developed at the store. We didn't have instant, selfies and things like that. So I think it was learned behavior to a certain extent when I was younger. And then as I got older, the media, because we didn't have social media back then, but the teen magazines, and then the comparison with girls that I went to school with, and things like that. So it just it started at a young age with certain things, and then it just kind of compounded over time with all of these other external sources that just added to all of those layers of insecurity and different ways of not feeling good enough.
I know, and I literally feel so sorry for young girls today that are growing up in the Instagram culture, and just that pressure that I can't even imagine. I can't imagine being a teen girl right now today and having perfection on social media in my face every day, and being able
Hmm.
to remain confident. I know that you do a lot of different speaking engagements? Do you ever speak to that demographic, and do you have any suggestions for a teenage girl that is navigating, the perfectionism that's online right now?
Yes, I actually do speak at schools, and it's something that I have prioritized this year that I want to do more of, because I realized the more that I was talking to women, the more I was helping them undo so many things that happened at a younger age. And then women that were coming to my events would tell me, you know what, young girls need to hear your message. And so I do speak to younger girls, and I agree. I'm so glad that I didn't grow up with social media. And a few things that I talk about is working on accepting yourself and not comparing yourself to other people, and choosing to embrace your uniqueness, and knowing that no one can ever be you and you can never be anyone else, and treating that as your superpower. And reminding them that when they are comparing themselves to other people, they are highlighting everyone's strengths to the point where they highlight their weaknesses. And just really helping them become self-aware of when they're comparing themselves, and encouraging them not to do that because it's not going to boost their self-esteem in any way, and really just helping them work on their confidence in a variety of ways. I call it layering on your confidence. And, I talk about accepting yourself and then believing in yourself and taking action despite fear and getting out of your comfort zone. And then ways that you can love yourself and how you talk to yourself internally, and helping tone down that inner mean girl that we have that tells us that we're not good enough. And then also building them up individually, but then creating a space where we talk about, because I love to get involved and have them do this kind of Q&A back and forth with me so that they can use their voice and be heard and be seen, is brainstorming on how they can make school a better place, because there's bullying that's going on and people making fun of each other, and being a young girl and choosing to cheer each other on and celebrate each other and compliment each other and not compete and compare and all of those things. So it's not just one thing. I like to share a variety and really just build them up individually and build them up together so that they can make growing up, which is already hard enough, a little bit easier.
I love that. I love that. And so some people may, I know that there's all types of differing opinions about the term self-love. I know some people think it's a buzzword. I know that there are some people in the Christian community that tend to turn their nose up at it, which completely like boggles my mind, because you're supposed to, love your neighbor as yourself. And so that tells you right there that you are meant to learn how to love yourself well so that you can love others well. But what is your own personal just definition of self-love, regardless of whatever age you're speaking to? What does self-love really mean to you?
To me, self-love, simply defined, is it is a lifestyle. Self-love is a lifestyle. It is everything that we choose to do and everything that we choose not to do. It's about making empowering choices rather than disempowering choices, and prioritizing ourselves. And self-love can mean so many different things, and it's individual to each person. And so that's why I just describe it as a lifestyle.
I love that. I'm writing it down right now. And what does that lifestyle look like in particular for you? How do you love yourself well?
So self-love for me has various components, and I will start with the working out, the physical component, because I use a lot of fitness analogies or things like that, because that is where I struggle with so much with my body image. And so self-love is taking care of my body. It doesn't mean that I have to work out all of the time. It doesn't have to mean that I'm on a diet. It doesn't mean that I'm restricting myself, but I'm making nourishing choices with the meals that I choose to eat, but I'm also not depriving myself. It means moving my body, but not feeling like I have to overexert myself and work out all of the time and constantly be weighing myself to see a certain number on the scale or have a certain body fat percentage and things like that. So self-love for me starts with acceptance in a variety of ways, but self-love means for me in my lifestyle is to love myself while I work on myself. It means that I can accept who I am and where I am right now, but I can also choose not to just stay comfortable and mean, that I'm settling and accepting just whatever is going on in my life. I can work on myself. I can choose to become better. I can improve. I can grow. I can learn. And so, that's the physical component. And then the mindset component, self-love, is being kind to myself, because for years I was really mean to myself and would say mean things, and thought that I always like to say you cannot hate yourself into loving yourself. So I would sometimes write mean messages to myself in the food pantry when I was in college, for example. And I thought that that would act as a deterrent for me to not eat as much, or, really distorted behaviors like that. I thought that kind of being mean to myself would motivate myself to achieve other things. So the mindset is huge for self-love. It is retraining your brain and choosing to be kind to yourself. And also it's choosing to be around people who make me a better person, interested in building me up and not, pointing out my weaknesses or my flaws. And self-love is so many different components. I could talk about a lot of different things, but those are just a few examples of my body and my mindset and just my social circles and who I surround myself with. And, self-love, a practical tip, if someone was like, well, where do I start? What do I do? Is think about where can you detox in your life? And that could mean a variety of things. How can you detox your body to become a healthier version of yourself and get more comfortable in your own skin? It doesn't mean that you have to go on a diet or do something that's really restrictive, but do something that makes you a better version of yourself and move your body. And you could detox your life as far as the people that you surround yourself with. You could detox your home and clear the clutter. That way it clears your mind. I mean, there's so many different things that people can do, and it's a practice. Self-love is a practice. You cannot just decide, you know what, I'm going to completely change every aspect of my life of not feeling good enough, and tomorrow I'm just going to wake up and I'm going to choose to love and accept myself. It's something that you have to show up and do daily and regularly, and then the more that you do it, the more that it becomes easier. And the important part of that is there's no destination point. While I have come a long way, there are so many things that I can still improve. There are so many things that I still have to work on, because self-love is a journey. There's no, okay, I've reached this point, and there's no other work to do. Because if you stop doing the work and you stop practicing and implementing all these things that help you become a better version of yourself, when you stop, then you kind of just gradually start going backwards on this slippery slope. And you can, get into more self-sabotaging behaviors, negative habits, and all of those things.
Well, and it's the same, it's the same with anything. I have a skincare business, and I will be asked, well, after I use these products and I get my skin good, if I quit using them, is my skin going to still look the same way?
Yeah.
And my response is always, when you leave, if you go to the gym and you've worked out for months and months and you get a 6-pack, when you walk out of the gym, your 6-pack doesn't automatically go away, but it doesn't remain if you don't keep doing the work to upkeep what you've done. And it's the exact same thing you're saying with self-love, is that we can't just, everyone wants, like, whether it is from physical care to spiritual care to finding your purpose to skincare, everybody wants to be able to flip a switch, and we want an easy button. We want to just push a button and say, I don't have to work on this anymore. I don't have, I fixed it. And I love that you talk about it not being a destination, but a journey, because I tell people the exact same thing about purpose. People always want to know, how do I find my purpose? Thinking it's this like light at the end of a tunnel. And instead it's a journey and a process. And it applies to personal development. It applies to anything that you are working to better yourself at. It's constantly going to be a journey. So I love that you bring that into your point there. But I am curious, what sent you on this trajectory? Like what happened, or give me a little background of where you decided that you really wanted to dig into self-love, and how did you first learn how to love yourself? And then what kind of brought about sharing it with the world? Hey guys, if you've considered starting a podcast like Monica and I have, but you're overwhelmed by how to actually launch, I've created a basics of podcasting course over on Skillshare. So you can sign up for my course and get 2 months of free premium membership. Skillshare is where I learn all types of skills that I don't know how to do otherwise. I'll include the link in the show notes. You can head over to Skillshare and search Brandy Voth's class, The Basics of Podcasting.
So to answer that question, that was a process, and it really began unintentionally. It wasn't like I thought, I'm lacking self-love. What can I do? And let me figure out this plan. When I was really beginning my self-love journey, I don't even know that I'd heard of the word self-love. I don't know where I heard it for the first time. But I didn't really realize what was happening. And I chose to go to a hot yoga class one day as a way to add a new way to burn calories and build muscle and reach different health and fitness goals. I had no idea after going regularly that I would really start this new journey in my life. And I had an incredible instructor. There were a variety of instructors, but one specifically, she just would say these words and these thoughts that would get me thinking on and off the mat. And once I heard them over and over again, such as, accept what your body can do for you right now. Do not compare your body right now and what it was able to do for you last week. Focus on what it can do for you right now in this moment. And things like that ended up being so transformational. And that is the power of, like I call retraining your brain. And when you have a negative thought and you replace it with a positive thought, it might not seem believable at the moment or easy, but when you do it over and over and you hear these things over and over, it really just becomes so much easier to implement and believe. Because if we can believe negative thoughts, we can also choose to believe positive thoughts. And so this yoga journey really was instrumental in my unintentional self-love journey. And at the same time, I was also getting into reading personal development books and really being inspired by different thought leaders. And it got me thinking in so many different ways. And so as I was doing all of this work on myself, I would just start posting on social media about my thoughts or my feelings of certain things. And they were inspirational and motivational messages. And the more that I did that, the more engagement I started to receive on these posts. And it just grew over time. And then I realized I was having a bigger impact than I thought, because people that were not liking or commenting on my messages started sending me direct messages and personally telling me how much of an impact I was making in their life by what I was sharing online. And really, what I was sharing online was to motivate myself or inspire myself. And it just so happened it was having a ripple effect on other people. So through positive reinforcement, I was like, okay, people really like this. I'll start doing more of it. And one day I was in class and I just came up with the name, the Self-Love Challenge. And it just kind of evolved from there. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. I am goal oriented, so that's how the challenge aspect came into the name, because I shared on social media when I was working on a certain yoga goal, trying to reach 500 classes and creating a countdown of why that was important to me and how I was achieving that goal. And then I trained for a 15K one time and got out of my comfort zone. It was really challenging. And then it inspired other people to create their own personal goals. And I just kind of was treating it as a lifestyle. And then I went to a women's retreat, knowing that I wanted to do something more than just inspire people on social media. And I didn't know what that was. And you were talking about purpose earlier. And I was really seeking more of my purpose in life, because I felt like there was more to my life than my current job. And went to this women's retreat. It was transformational. I did my first meditation, and I came out of it with a creative download to do a self-love workshop. So I did that. It went over well. And then a year went by and I didn't do anything else with it. I was still showing up on social media, kind of figuring everything out. Back to the same retreat a year later, and I got really clear that I was supposed to be speaking. And I thought, what better way to share what I'm typing than to share it with my words and do more events in person and speak to larger audiences. And once I got clarity on I want to be a speaker, things just started happening. Of course, it was because I was taking action. I was going to entrepreneurs conferences. I was reading so many books, continuing to work on myself, helping other people however I could, and then just put it out there that I want to do speaking events. And then I got my first one, and then it just really took off from there. And I'm loving it. And I'm figuring so much out as I go, but I just know that if I can help people by sharing my story and doing work on myself, then they are able to have a happier life, and then it's a ripple effect for everyone else in their life and all of the people that they can inspire. So that's in a, a nutshell, I guess, how everything kind of got to where I am today.
I love that. And I keep saying this, but it's an episode full of love. So I can say I love it as many times as I want. But
Yes.
I'm curious though, because have you had a past or a background with speaking, or have you been a speaker in other roles or other jobs you've held or anything like that? Or is this an entirely new world?
Yes and no. My current job, I am an attorney, and so that obviously requires speaking. Many people think of attorneys as litigators and in the courtroom all the time. I'm not. I am in an office all day behind a desk looking at legal documents, writing them, interpreting them, talking to clients and things like that. But for the most part, not your typical attorney job as far as in the courtroom all the time. But I am a very talkative person. I can talk to anyone essentially about anything. And when I was younger, I actually got moved around a lot in elementary school because I'd always talk to people. And I always thought it was funny because I was like, the teacher has no clue. She thinks she's moving me away from my friend, but I'm really just going to make friends with the next person she sits me next to. And so I tell people it's really always been natural. And I went to law school because I wanted to be in the courtroom a lot. And, I just ended up going down a different path. But I haven't really been too shy. And then I started thinking about it when I started doing all of these speaking events, how it was really something I was always born to do. And it was memories that I really hadn't thought about in years. I remember when I was in the 4th grade, I was at a new school. I moved around a lot as a child. So I think that was my 4th or 5th school. And I was pretty shy. We had to give a speech about, I don't remember what it was. We were able to choose, and I was into hamsters at the time. So I wrote a persuasive speech, I think, about why hamsters were great and how to take care of them. And I practiced so much because I wanted to be really prepared because I was nervous about speaking in front of this entire class. It was the first speech I'd ever given in school. So I practiced a lot in front of my mom and went and did the presentation at school. And at the end of the day, my teacher gave me a note and sent it home with me. And I was terrified because it was sealed. I couldn't open it, and I almost didn't give it to my mom, but I knew if I didn't, she would find out and I would get in trouble. And so I didn't know what it was about, and I handed it to my mom, scared to death. And it turns out the teacher personally wrote my mom a note praising my presentation and how it was amazing and just all of these praises. And I remember for years my mom had that on her refrigerator with the magnet. And then in 6th and 7th grade at a different school, they had an organization where I was able to do competitive public speaking. I loved it. And I remember writing a speech titled, it was about education, and it was about it being an opportunity of a lifetime. And I went to different schools. They had competitions and did competitive speaking, and I loved it. And I was doing so well, I think when I was in 7th grade, that my instructor had me competing against the high school kids. And then I made it to a state competition. And so then, fast forward in high school, I'd always wanted to go to law school, which, people are always know attorneys for talking. And so I really feel it was just a natural thing that I was born to do. I just went about it in a very unique way to make it happen.
So I literally feel like you are telling my life story, and I have a book that's coming out in a couple of months, and I feel like you are reading my story off the page because I gave my first speech in the third grade and like went on to compete and do competitive public speaking all throughout high school. But it's really interesting to me because, and this is something that I tell people when I do workshops and presentations, when people are searching for their purpose and they're trying to find that unique gift that they have to offer the world, so often we have been doing whatever it is, the way that we serve the world and the purpose that we're meant to serve. We've most likely been doing it all of our life. And it typically is something we can think back to in third grade or fourth grade at some point in our life before people told us to quit dreaming, right? Or people told us that we can't. And so if you look back, like oftentimes you just don't recognize the gift that you have as that gift that you have to serve others. And I don't know about you. I personally, like, I was the kid that talked too much. I was the kid that got moved around. Everyone told me that I talked too much my entire life. So I almost let that keep me from really fully stepping into my purpose, because when I had the idea of the podcast, I'm like, nobody wants to hear me talk because I talk too much, you know? And so I think it's really, really great that you bring this up, because I tell women this all the time. You can almost always pinpoint something from a really early age that you know that you can recognize as, that was my gift. That was when I was serving my purpose. And now we have to get back to how do we do that at this point in our life.
I love that. I love that you're saying that. I mean, it's crazy to have so much in common, especially with the similarity in our stories starting at a young age. And, you know, I think that's very interesting, since we both talked a lot and we got moved around a lot and we were told we talked too much. And now we are able to monetize that, but also positively impact the lives of so many others because of our too muchness. And and you know, how sad is it that kids who grow up into adults might not believe in themselves now, or they've toned certain personality traits about themselves down, where they're not utilizing their gifts because maybe they were told it wasn't realistic to go after what they wanted, or a quality that they have about themselves is bad in some way. So I would just challenge your listeners to, if they're seeking their purpose or wanting to brainstorm about this concept that we're talking about further, is thinking about what it was that they were told they were too much of as a child or as an adult, and how they might be able to use that to their advantage in some way. Because if they're too much of it, it means there's a lot of it inside of them. And how can they channel that into something that serves them in an incredible way?
Yes. So I have a girlfriend that she has a daughter that she's cut from the same mold we're cut from. And she's a young girl. I want to say she's around 7 at this point. And she messaged me one day, my friend did, and she said, I don't want to stifle this. And I don't want to ever make her think that she's too much, but she never stops talking. And she said, how do I, she said, I just sometimes, like, I need a minute to clear my head. She said, how do I channel this into something positive? And I said, you know what? Do 2 things. 1, give her a journal and tell her to write down everything she's thinking in her head so that you can read it later. And 2, give her a phone and tell her to go record videos. And just give her an outlet, because she has something to say to the world, and we have to find a way to let her do that, but also let that mama have some peace and quiet.
Yes, I resonate with that so much. You are going to appreciate this story. I had the most patient grandmother, and it was a talkative child. I would talk everyone's ear off, and I'm sure I drove them bananas. And I remember one day we were out shopping, and my grandmother bought this magnet, and she goes, "Oh, I have to get this. It is perfect for you." And I wanted to put it on her fireplace. There's a metal part on there. And it said, "Dear Lord, please put one hand on my shoulder and the other one over my mouth." And it just cracked me up because, she did it from a place of love, but she just thought it was so funny. She's like, "This is perfect, Brandy, because you love to talk, and, this will be perfect." And it was just really funny. It was a fond memory I have
Oh,
with my
yeah.
grandmother.
Yes, listen, my parents would ground me by telling me I wasn't allowed to speak. Like, you were grounded from talking for the next 1 hour. And I
Yeah.
never made it ever, ever, ever. But I love that you and I both have been able to channel our voices and use our voices to create impact in the world. I love that you are spreading your voice of positivity with women everywhere, and that you are doing the self-love challenge. If there is one thing that you could leave our listeners with, if there's one thing that you would like them to know, what would that one thing be?
What a powerful question. To leave your listeners with one thing, I would like them to know that it is never too late to start or to start over in any aspect of their life, and they can start over as many times as they need to. And during that process of starting over, I want them to love themselves while they work on themselves.
That is awesome. I love that. And I'm a firm believer. Like, it doesn't all have to look right. You just have to start
Hmm.
and take the action. So I love that.
Yes, you have to start somewhere to get anywhere. And, I feel like so many people, they're afraid to be a beginner. They are afraid to fail. They are afraid of criticism. But you just have to start somewhere to get anywhere, to learn something, to improve, to grow, and just embrace being a beginner, because it's really exciting to be a beginner at something, because it means you have so much to learn and so many ways to improve and so many ways to become better. So rather than seeing it as something scary, see it as something is rather than seeing it as scary, choose to see it as something exciting.
Yes, absolutely. If someone is listening and they want to work on their self-love and they don't know where to start, and they're looking for someone to guide them through that, is that something that you do? And how do they get in touch with you if you do?
That is absolutely something that I do. I love working with people one on one, because oftentimes people ask, where does someone start in their self love journey? And while I can share a variety of tips and tools and resources, it is so much more powerful to work with someone individually, so I can meet them where they are, because everyone has different strengths and struggles and insecurities. So I definitely work with people individually. And if someone is interested in that, they can email me at the selflovechallenge@gmail.com, and they can just tell me that they're interested in working together, and we can go from there.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that you're available for that, because so many people, it is a foreign concept and they really kind of need someone to guide them through that and hold their hand. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that you spoke about uh, in the future you will have some digital products available. So where can people go to stay up to date with everything you have going on, and what's coming down the pipeline for this challenge?
I have so many things that I am working on, and a digital course will be the first one, as well as a book finally. So I cannot wait to be celebrating that. And congratulations on your upcoming book that's about to be released. For people that are interested in
Thank
saying,
you.
yeah, you're welcome. For people that are interested in, being updated on what's going on, I am revamping my website. So you can go to www.selflovechallenge.com, or you can also just email me and let me know that you want to be added on to my email list, and I can get you in the know with everything that will be rolling out pretty soon.
Awesome. I love that. And they can follow you on, do you like Instagram or Facebook better?
I like both, but for listeners, they can follow me on Instagram. It's really easy to find me. It's at the Self Love Challenge.
I will put all of your tags and information in the show notes so that everyone can stay in touch with you. I look forward to seeing you in person sometime soon, and we need to grab some lunch, some coffee, and make some plans for the future.
Yes, I would absolutely love that. I love connecting and collaborating with like-minded women, and I am so grateful that we met at the Rise Business Conference. And I'm not sure if you remember how, but we were dancing on the front row, and we just kind of happened to bump into each other, having the time of our life there. So I am so happy that we connected.
Yes.
Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Oh man, you guys, my favorite part about this show is the amazing women that I get to meet every single week. I love hearing their stories, and I love bringing their stories to you guys. I certainly hope that you're inspired to go out and lead your own purpose-filled lives after listening to these guests week in and week out. If you are inspired by something you've heard in the show, can I ask a favor? Can you go please write a review? Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Give us a rating. We'll take 5 stars if you're feeling generous. And then tell all your friends about us so that we can continue to bring you these guests. And by the way, are you hanging out with us on Instagram? Because you should be. It's at @the_power project. Check us out. As always, I hope that you enjoyed this show, and I cannot wait to chat with you next week. But until then, you guys go out and lead your best purpose-filled lives.